Thanks, everybody. Yeah, I have the enviable position of being your last presenter before the end of a long day, long and interesting day. But thanks to Johan for warming, warming you all up. So my name is Sheri Arnott, and I'm a senior policy advisor from World Vision International. Most people will have an idea of who World Vision is, but we are a global NGO that programs, we're a child-focused organization, and we program in the areas of development, humanitarian assistance, and advocacy and policy. So I was really pleased through all the presentations to see a lot of commonalities between how people in the livelihoods and resilience community are thinking about nutrition. So that was great. I wanted to talk a little bit, I'm going to shift the focus a little bit away from large-scale humanitarian disasters to what was coined by a gentleman named Peter Goebbels as the everyday emergency. So we know that in terms of child malnutrition, the vast majority of it, both wasting and stunting, happens outside of emergencies. But it is those contexts where, especially wasting, where we tend to see most of the attention to child malnutrition, until recently with the Sun movement and so forth. So I wanted to give you an example from, sorry, I'm getting confused by the, so an example of a graduation model that we've developed, a nutrition-focused graduation model that we've developed in Sri Lanka. I thought the graduation model would be of great interest to this community here because there is so much interest within it, both from Bangladesh, but also Ethiopia has been a real pioneer in the social protection and graduation models. So the context in Sri Lanka around the everyday emergency, and this will be familiar for everybody who is talking about resilience. There are limited livelihood options for very poor households, weak access to existing government services, particularly for the most destitute and the sort of livelihood group just above them. Poor households get caught in poverty traps, poor nutrition, health, and education. And there is poor households are very weakly linked to social capital. There's a high degree of exclusion from sort of mainstream society and development processes. So I'm going to show you a picture, but I know that nobody is going to be able to see it. But for those who work in graduation models, you'll recognize this is a participatory livelihood ranking system that we use in this model in Sri Lanka. And it really divides households into different levels of where they are on sort of a livelihood strategy or a livelihoods position. So there is, I need to put my glasses on to see this, destitute, poorest of the poor, poor, vulnerable, non-poor, and so on. All graduation systems have some way of ranking poor households, but what's particularly unique about the model we're using in Sri Lanka is that we actually rank based on nutrition status. Other assets as well, but nutrition status and improving nutrition is a key objective of, and actually is the core of the model in graduation in Sri Lanka. This is a pilot at this stage. We've been doing it for a couple of years, but the idea is to roll it out into all of our programming and also to see its applicability in other contexts. So we've had, we have graduation models that seek to link, I'm sorry, it's the computer technology is just, it
is a bit confusing.
Apologies for this. We thought it would. I'm trying to read my notes from there.
Okay.
Okay.
You have to kind of
Tap it. Okay. Okay. So as I was saying, this draws from the best practice. I'm really sorry about that. Best practices around graduation models that we know exist in Bangladesh and in Ethiopia and now in Rwanda and other countries. But it puts children, the improved nutrition for children under 5 years of age is the key objective of the approach, in recognition of the large evidence base on the negative economic consequences of child undernutrition for households, but also for national economies. And one of my co-presenters mentioned that as well today. So some of the key features of the approach, I talked about the nutrition focus, but like other graduation models, World Vision's models meets families where they are. So rather than a sort of holistic or a one-off community-based approach, it actually looks at people within the communities to identify the different livelihood groups. There are quite a few graduation segments to ensure that tailored interventions enabling graduation from one living standard segment to the next, as well as enabling improved nutrition. From the get-go, families with malnourished children are identified and supported with appropriate nutrition interventions. In addition to, and this is very important, it's not just about nutrition-specific interventions, it's also about linking them to tailored economic interventions, which first focus on increasing diet diversity, livelihoods, and access to appropriate government services. This model I'm so sorry about this. Anyways, all to say, I think we'll just go to the next slide. I think I'm going to have to work from the... I'm sorry, I'm just going to work from my computer here because
You can't see it, but there's a very fancy program which somehow responds only 30% of the time. This is what we're dealing with, and it's a little bit too fancy for us. So we'll go to a more classical thing.
Okay, sorry. Yes. So this will be awkward because I'm going to be looking at my notes on the computer here. Just hold on, let me get this. Pardon?
Just so you're not blocked.
Okay. Okay. Now, let me regroup. So in terms of policy, we need to get to the last slide there. Lessons for resilience policy. We want to posit, and we're not obviously the first ones to do this, others have said this, but we think that there's a very good opportunity to have child nutrition status as a measure of resilience. So we have under 5 child nutritional status as a sensitive and objective crisis indicator. We have systems at the global level. We have systems at many national levels to monitor child malnutrition. And it acts as a strong proxy for household welfare. It's widely accepted and used as a crisis indicator, particularly acute and severe acute malnutrition, particularly in humanitarian crisis. So I think the important point I'm trying to get across is that it tells a story of what is going on within a household. It also tells a story about what is going on in terms of equity and distribution of resources at the national level. I was looking through the primer that John Hodnott did for this conference, and he puts forward a joint definition for resilience. that says it's the capacity to ensure adverse stressors and shocks do not have long-lasting development consequences. Well, we know over the past 5 to 10 years, actually since 2008 and the publication of the first Lancet series on nutrition, that there is a strong body of evidence, and that has only been growing on the lifelong consequences of undernutrition, particularly in the first 1,000 days. So what are the implications of this? We need better investments in national nutrition monitoring systems if we are to use, and our argument is that that should be used as a national monitoring for resilience. We need to have better national monitoring systems to capture, particularly to capture unseen, invisible children outside of large-scale crises, as well as investments in the prevention and treatment of undernutrition outside, even though it mostly gets attention during visible crises. We need to have, from a policy perspective, national systems that should be designed to help vulnerable households manage a wider range of extensive risks. So extensive risks are the everyday emergencies that have been shown to have over time much stronger consequences for very vulnerable households, to increase vulnerability over time. But largely in the resilience discussions, we focus on large-scale disasters. So there's a need to balance the focus on large-scale crises as well as these everyday emergencies. And these crises that households face, these extensive risks, are often idiosyncratic in nature. So you can't say that everybody will have a health crisis. You can't say everybody will have a flood. A large-scale crisis you can, but we need sort of programs like social protection programs that are able to manage at the policy level, that are able to manage a wider range of risks without programming for every single type of emergency that very vulnerable households will face. The other thing that's really important, and I was really glad to hear it in some of the sessions earlier today, was the whole issues around community-based systems and social capital, and the importance of those systems, those informal systems. They're formalized in a way, but we call them informal systems, to help poor households manage risks. So we would like to see strengthening and building linkages between informal community-based systems and formal services and systems such as safety net, social protection, health, economic development. Okay, thank you. Sorry about the technical issues.